Hey besties, welcome back. I feel like it's been so long since we've done a long form video and just chatted with each other. So as you guys know, I have moved apartments and I'm completely done, and bro, my body is so sore. It's so sore. I've just been unpacking and moving things and it's really hard, yo. Anyways, I asked you guys a couple days ago what the best way to eat pork belly was, and that's because I went to the Asian market because I didn't have any ingredients because I just moved to my new house, and they were having this huge sale on pork belly, so I got a lot, and overwhelmingly you guys voted that red braised pork belly, which is a Chinese style one, is the best way to eat it. But then crispy pork belly came in second, and then the ramen chashu one came in third. So naturally I'm going to be making all three and ranking them in the order. Well, you're going to see the ranking at the end, but basically I'm going to be making all three and tell you how it actually like tasted. And as a spoiler, I may or may not have messed up one of them, may or may not. Okay, I'm not saying I did it, but I'm also not saying I didn't do it. It doesn't matter. Let's get started. We're going to be starting off with the one that won the vote and also the easiest thing on this list to make. It's the red braised pork belly, which is Chinese style pork belly. It really only took like 2-ish hours to cook. And it is such a simple recipe. It basically, you chop things up and you dump it in a pot and let it cook for a really long time while managing the water, and you're done. So let's get right into it. We're gonna start off by taking our pork belly. Here's one of the pieces of the pork belly that I got from the store. And what we're gonna do is gonna cut it up into little cubes. The recipe I was using says cut it into about like an inch, and that's what I did. But after I finished chopping it up, I realized that like maybe it was a little bit too big. So I ended up cutting it again in half, but yeah, just cut it up into little cubes. This is a really fatty piece of pork belly. Like, it's so fatty. And then what you're gonna do is gonna blanch it. So basically pour in some cold water, let it come to a boil. You see that nastiness? That's disgusting. You're gonna scoop, just dump the water away, throw it in the trash, throw it away, and then bring it back in. And then from here, I'm gonna start caramelizing the pork a little bit, adding some sugar, adding some ginger, and let that cook down. Midway through, once it started getting color, I dumped out the oil. That is just oil coming from the pork because it's so fatty. Then I added some bay leaf, then I added a whole bunch of soy sauce, and then I added Chinese rice wine vinegar, Chashu wine, and that, not rice wine vinegar, rice wine. And then I didn't have star anise, so I ended up just using coriander. And then I didn't have white pepper, so I ended up using black pepper. And then I just added some more water until every piece of pork was covered. And then I just let that boil for a while. This is about like an hour in. I just kept on having to add more water and letting it boil. 2 hours later, and here is what it's looking like. Look at that lovely caramelized red color. It looks delicious. And yeah, it was so good. It's also really fatty, so when you're scooping it out, definitely scoop out some of the oil. I cut up some green spring onions, and look at that. Doesn't that look like you would get it in a restaurant? It was so good. Anyways, as always, first bite is for you, bestie. Look at that perfect piece of pork. It literally melts in your mouth, and it's also going to melt in your arteries because it is so fatty, but it was so good. Like, it's sweet, it's a little spicy, it's delicious. 10 out of 10. Well, not 10 out of 10. It's like a solid 8 out of 10. Yeah. Next up is the crispy pork belly. Now, realistically speaking, this one should have been really easy to make, except for the fact that you have a minimum 24-hour wait time, which is super annoying. And also, this may or may not have been the one that I messed up, but in my defense, it's not completely my fault. It's also the oven's fault in my new place. But moving on, let's get right into it. As always, we're going to start with pork belly. I told you I had a lot of pork belly, and you're going to take out your aggression and anger on this piece of pork belly. Okay, you're going to stab the living daylights out of it. I started off with a fork, and then I had to change weaponry and moved to a knife. And basically, you're going to poke a lot of holes in the skin because that's what we want to get crispy. Then you're going to make your 5-spice rub, and it's basically some salt, some sugar, Chinese 5-spice, black pepper because I don't have white pepper, and more Chinese 5-spice, and then you're going to add Chashu wine, mix it all together. This was supposed to be a paste, but I ended up making it a little too liquidy, so yeah, it kind of doesn't matter. Then you're going to cut slits into the pork belly on the meaty side, and what you're going to do is basically you're going to take, look at that gymnastic shape. Anyway, you're going to take your rub that you just made, and you're going to rub it into literally all the crevices, like any exposed skin that's not the top fat part, like the top skin part, any exposed meat, basically you want to coat it in that rub because that's going to be your flavor. And then you're going to wrap it in foil, cover the meat side, the marinated side, basically you're going to wrap that in foil, leave the skin exposed, and put it in your fridge for 24 hours.
24 hours later.
The next day, we're going to get started with separating an egg from, the white from the yolk. And what we really want is the egg whites because you're going to add an ungodly amount of salt, okay? A sinful amount of salt that's gonna make Sodom and Gomorrah look kind of crazy. Mix that together with your egg whites because that is going to be what you're gonna put on the skin side of your thing, out of your pork belly. You're gonna coat it in white vinegar again because you want to dry that skin out because it needs to get super crispy. And then you're gonna take that salt that we just made with the egg whites and pack it on there, okay? This needs to look like the salt fields of where rich white people have their weddings. It needs to look like a crazy beach, okay? You're gonna put that in the oven, and you're gonna put that in for 30 minutes until your salt kind of looks like this, and then you're gonna pry it off in one piece, which kind of looks pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, like I was like, oh wow, that's so cool. And then you can see the skin is like getting gummy slash rubbery. It kind of looks like rubber. And what you're gonna do is you're going to stab it some more, okay? So take your favorite weapon of choice, whether it's a fork or knife, and you're gonna stab the living daylights out of it. And then you're gonna put it in the oven again, but I may or may not have forgotten about it because I kind of made it extra crispy. The bottom is not burnt.
Lucy, stop it! Denial is a river in Egypt. Your husband is gay.
I want to say that the bottom is not burnt. That is just a seasoning making it extra crispy, okay? And you can hear the crisp, like it came out really, really crispy, and I didn't have to do that to cut through it. I just wanted to because I saw people doing that in the video and I wanted to hack it, even though I don't have a Chinese cleaver. And yeah, the meat was really tender. However, I will say be careful with the salt because I accidentally got salt on the side and it made the side pieces really salty, but the inside meat was really, really tender and delicious. But yeah, it was really salty and I didn't eat the crispy part because it was really fatty. So yeah, that's the crispy pork belly. It came out extra crispy. It was a solid like 5 out of 10 for me. Last and certainly not least, this was the Chashu pork that's usually found in ramen. And this was probably one of the most annoying things to make because you have to cook it and then rest it for like 24 hours. We're gonna start off with our pork belly. You're gonna stab some holes in it with your fork or a knife in the meat side, and then you're going to roll it up. Now I really struggled with this because you're supposed to use twine, but I didn't have twine and I had cheesecloth, wow. And I basically struggled to tie it up, but I finally got it. And then look at that, it looks beautiful. Tied it into a bow. You're gonna blanch it in a pot with some water, so boil it, dump out the water because of all the gunk, and then you're gonna start cutting up your aromatics. I used green onions, garlic, I cheated with the ginger again, and then I used jalapenos just because I like it a little spicy. But yeah, basically get everything ready because we're gonna be throwing it into the pot at some point to let this braise. So you're gonna start off with a lot of sugar. You're gonna add some soy sauce. I used quite a lot of soy sauce, and then you're gonna add sake this time instead of the Chashu wine. To really give it that umami flavor. Gonna add some mirin because mirin is just like very necessary in Japanese cooking. Added dark soy sauce just a little bit, and then add some water, and then you're gonna toss in all of our aromatics. Make sure it's nicely evenly distributed. Cover it up. You can either use a paper towel, but I used a cheesecloth, the remaining part that I had cut up, and you're gonna cover the top of it because you want that part to also get kind of the flavor, and you're gonna boil it down for like 2-3 hours. 2 hours if you want it a little crispy, I think. Not crispy, but like, you know, still chewy. Then 3 hours if you want it like really, really soft. I ended up doing mine for 3 hours. And halfway through I had to add more water because the water cooked out and it was getting really, the sauce was cooking down basically. But yeah, flip it over multiple times, cover it more cheesecloth, and then once it's done, cool it down enough, and then you're gonna put it in a Ziploc bag with some of the broth slash the water, and you're gonna put it in the fridge and let that like congeal basically into like a solid mass that you can cut through. So that's what I did. I had to double Ziploc mine because I don't have a vacuum sealer because I'm not rich. I'm broke. But yeah, that's what it looked like. And then 24 hours later, you bring it back out, and here you can see the fat and stuff just floating around in the broth. It's kind of gross. But here is my beautiful chashu. I did my best. It looks kind of nasty because I used cheesecloth, not twine, but it doesn't matter. Just take it all off. Throw your cheesecloth away. Pick out any like pieces of fat or any vegetables. I wiped it up a little bit so it's less wet, and then it's time to cut it up. I don't know what possessed me to use a really small knife to cut this up, but the first slice that I did was a struggle, but you can see it looks good. Even though I use subpar equipment, it looks good. I got a bigger knife. I cut myself another piece because I am going to be frying it up. to try it out. Now, of course, for Chashu, you're supposed to use ramen, and I use the highest quality ramen that I know, which is Buldak Carbonara. That's all I had in my house, but I fried it up just a little bit. I've seen people use a torch with this. I don't have a torch because, again, I'm broke. So if you want to donate to help me get a torch, that would be so amazing. But yeah, I ate it with the finest ramen in all of the land, Buldak Carbonara, with a little soup in it. And yeah, this was really soft. It was really tender. Like, I could cut it apart with my chopstick, and I did multiple times. I might have struggled, but I did do it. And I will say for the meat part, the taste was good, but I think maybe it's the cut of pork belly that I had. It was just a lot of fat. So the meat tasted good. The fat was a very disgusting mouthfeel, but that's just because I don't like the fat mouthfeel, and it tasted really good with ramen. So all in all, it was a good combination. And I realized how easy it is to make these things. As for my rating, I'm gonna give this one probably like a 5 because there was quite a lot. Actually, no, you know what? I'll give it a 6. Give it a 6 because it tasted good. It was just I had a lot of problem with the fat, but that's on me for getting bad quality pork belly. Yeah. So if I were to rank everything today, I would say number 1 is definitely the red braised pork belly. You guys were right. That was number 1. That was the best tasting thing that I made today. And then secondly would be the Chashu ramen, and then third would be the crispy pork belly because it was just okay. But yeah, that's my ranking. Thank you all so much for watching. Please give me recommendations for things you want me to try or food you want me to cook, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. And before I forget, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow me on all platforms. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.